like the teacher literally gets up from where she's sitting and she's like, oh, you're gonna talk back to me? Are you smarter than me? No, then you'd be the teacher. Or do you want to be the teacher? Do you think you know everything? And she just like starts going off on this girl. And as a computer science major, I had to take a course called discrete math, which is basically where you learn how to do combinatorics, essentially, and other stuff like that. But that's not here nor there. Anyways, the teacher was an adjunct, which if you don't know what that means, they suck. Basically, like, not an actual, like, permanent teacher for that role. And this particular adjunct professor really did not give a shit about like their position or like what they were teaching. And I honestly am not convinced, and never have been since, that they knew anything about the topic they were teaching, because the way that they taught was straight from, like, they would be holding a they would spend the entire lecture holding a, like, printed out, stapled together, like, pamphlet they had made for themselves of, like, notes. And they would like teach you by, like, going through a PowerPoint and reading from their notes. And I'm, like, almost certain, like, I always had, like, this feeling. I was like, I don't feel like she wrote those notes. Like, I feel like she's literally using someone else's PowerPoint and someone else's notes and just, like, reading shit to us. Because one of her rules that she made at the beginning of the class was that you are not allowed to interrupt the lecture to ask questions. You can only ask questions at the end. And then what would happen is, if you ask questions at the end, she would just deflect them, like, immediately. She'd just be like, I already went over that in the lecture. You should have taken notes or whatever. Like, ask one of your students, or ask some other student. Or she would be like, that's in the book. You really need to go look in the book. Or, like, she'd be like, have you asked your peers yet? And it's like, no, because you're the fucking professor. Like, I'm not gonna ask yes, actually, I did ask my peers, and the kid sitting next to me doesn't fucking have any idea what the fuck is going on either. So can you answer my goddamn fucking question? So, like, right off the bat, she fucking sucked. But, yeah, that's a good, really good sign of a teacher. All right, don't fucking ask me questions. Do not interact. Anyways, I am a teacher. But, so, like, we're going into this course, right? And, it's not, like, I'm not a huge fan of math. I always do fine in math, because, like, I can pick it up okay, but, like, there's some wacky stuff in discrete math going on. And I was taking, like, this is early on in my college career, so I was still taking overloaded credits like an idiot so that I can graduate a year early, which only made me graduate into COVID. Really cool. So, like, I would go to office hours for, like, a lot of my professors just to, like, make sure I was really on top of shit. So I went to this lady's office hours, right? Anyways, I go to her office and she's sitting there watching Netflix on her phone with earbuds in. And, like, I am standing there and she's just not looking up. Like, it's impossible that she hasn't seen me, but she's just not looking up. So I say, like, I, like, lean in, I'm like, excuse me. And she doesn't look away from her phone. She pulls out one earbud and just goes, yeah. I'm like, this is going on. This is a great start. Hey, I was doing the homework and I have some questions about, like, problems, whatever the fuck. And she's like, sorry, I don't answer any questions during office hours of, like, things that we went over in lecture. And I'm like, yeah, that's actually the thing. Like, there's some stuff on here, like, that you asked us to do for, like, the homework assignment that, like, was not in the lecture. And she's like, well, you probably just missed it. It's all in the lecture. And I'm like, no, actually, like, I take really good notes. And I checked by 3 other people, and none of us know how to do this shit, because, like, we haven't been taught how to do this shit. And she's like, did you check the book? I'm like, I did check the book, actually, and it does a horrible job of explaining this, which is why I want to, like, come get your help. And then she's just like, Oh, well, I don't answer anything that is like a question about stuff in the book because I just teach, like, you should just learn it from my lectures and not from the book. So I'm like, okay, well, so you won't answer my questions about like what you taught in lecture. You won't answer my questions about this. Like, can I at least do an example problem with you? And she's like, no, I won't do any example problems in office hours. I'm like, what do you do in office hours? That like, I will watch Netflix. That is all I could do for you. She was literally just like, no, I don't answer questions about things that I've taught. I'm like, very cool. So that was great. Never tried to go back to her office hours because it was very apparent just from that one visit that her office hours were just gonna be a fucking waste of my time. Yeah. I do not answer questions. Do not interact with me. Goodbye. So that shit sucked. Anyways, later into the semester, we had this project where we had to like research whatever the fuck, I don't remember, and do like a presentation on it. And you had to cover like 3 different topics or whatever, okay? And there's this one group that goes up and they put 2 of their topics onto one slide, right? And like while they're presenting, they do the whole thing, and then at the end, they like open up for questions. And like the professor right off the bat is like, yeah, so you actually had to cover 3 topics for this assignment and you guys only did 2, so you are automatically going to be losing like 30% of your grade. And then this girl that's like in their project group, is like, oh no, one of our slides has like 2 things on it. We actually specifically said like while we were presenting, like these are 2 separate topics. And she's like, no, that doesn't work because they were both on the same slide, so that doesn't count as 2 separate topics. And she's like, but they're entirely different chapters in the book, like blah blah blah. And she's just like, oh, so you're gonna, like, the teacher literally gets up from where she's sitting and she's like, oh, you're gonna talk back to me? Are you smarter than me? No, then you'd be the teacher. Or do you want to be the teacher? Do you think you know everything? And she just like starts going off on this girl, and this girl is like standing in the front of class, like freezes, like, and like starts crying while this lady is like fucking actually starting to like raise her voice and just yell at her, and then just tells her to get out, and she like runs out of the room crying. And we're just like sitting there, everybody, what is that meme with the like the puppet monkey that like looks away? Like, it was literally that meme with like everybody's just sitting there in the class like is that supposed to happen? Is that okay? Can she do that? So that was fucking cursed. Another horrible story I have from that class, we had a exam, right? So I came in like 7 minutes before the class started to like get ready and just like have my review my notes and whatever and like take a seat. And like while there's still like 6 or 7 minutes before the class is even like started, this kid goes up to the professor, who is on her phone with her earbuds in at like the front of the room, like behind the desk or whatever, and it's like, oh, can I like ask you a few quick questions about like this and this topic before the exam? And the teacher's like, no, there's not enough time, the exam's just like about to start, you have to go sit back down. And he's like, well, there's still like 7 minutes before the class starts. She's like, no, there's not enough time, you have to go sit down. So like he just was like, all right, and went back and sat down. And again, she just went back to watching Netflix on her phone for the next like 7 minutes until the class started. But like that's not the bad part of this story. The bad part of this story is that the exam starts, and then like 25-30 minutes into this exam, like nobody's done, but that same kid gets back up and he goes up to her, and I'm sitting in the front row, so like I can hear this, or I can hear what he's saying. What she says is so loud that everybody else can hear it too. But we'll get there. So he goes up to her and he's like, hey, I ran out of like room on the back of the test to do like scratch work. Do you have any like scrap paper, or can I like use some from my bag to do the rest of the problem out? And then do you know what the fuck she says back to me, or back to the kid. Like, so he just says that. He's like, yeah, can I like use some of mine, or do you have any extra like scrap paper that I can use to do the rest of these problems? And then like loud as fuck, so that everybody can hear it, the teacher responds by saying, no, you can't. And honestly, if you if you had spent the time that you spent at the beginning of this class coming up here to harass me, learning how to write smaller, you wouldn't have this problem. And like, it's like, dude, come on. He just wanted scrap paper. And you're gonna be like, oh, idiot, if you had come and asked me like to review a problem with you at the beginning of the class and you had used that time to learn how to write smaller, you wouldn't be having this problem. I'm like, really? That's your reply? Oh, it was very, very awful. Anyways, this gets so bad to the point that so many people report her that and like have so much evidence of her just like calling people out, being an absolute like rude idiot asshole, that she gets fired. And then the dean of the math department comes in like one day and is like, hey, so yeah, she's fired. We don't actually have another person to teach this class or not. And by the way, this is 3.5 weeks out from finals. The dean comes in and is like, so we're just gonna give you guys an exam today, like a pop exam. Don't worry about it, it's not going on your grade. We just need to test how much of the course material you guys actually like have covered and like know, so that we know we can like get an idea of like how much damage control we have to do and like how fucked you guys got by this. So he comes in, we take the exam, and like the next day, because he had got a bunch of like TAs to do all the grading in one day, and he like comes back the next day for class and he's like, so you guys only know from like based on how you did on the exam, which by the way was hard as fuck because like none of us knew what the fuck was going on, but what I'm about to say will explain that. The dean comes in, he's like, so based off the exam, you guys only know about 40% of the curriculum that you're supposed to know by this point. And it is a department-wide final, so we can't give you a different final without like breaking a bunch of policy and rules that are like defined by the college. So you guys and we also don't have another teacher for you, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna like there's gonna be TAs here during the hours that you would normally have the classes for like the rest of the semester, but it's just gonna be up to you guys to like read from the book and like teach yourselves as best as you can for the final. And everybody's like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? You're just gonna be like, so I understand you may have paid thousands of dollars for this course. Not only did you get fucked, but the teacher is like gone. How about you just teach yourselves and pay us money? And I'm like, oh dude, college is sick. I'm going into debt for this. Pog. Gotta love it. But anyways, we took the final, and then they gave everybody across the board, like in our class, they curved everybody to fuck. Like they curved our grades super hard. I think I passed that class with a B-, and I never looked back because like realistically, nobody passed that class. Like the worst thing was then going into like higher level math courses after that, where they're like, oh yeah, so like here's all this shit you gotta do, and don't worry, like it's all gonna be stuff that you like have already learned in like the prerequisite required to take this course, discrete math. And like me looking at the like 4 other kids in this like class that all came from like that professor were like, what do you mean the stuff we learned in the like prerequisite for this course? Because we didn't learn shit. So that was good. That was great. I loved that experience. That was a great time.
Baby, hit it.